Scott Ritter, he mentioned something very, very important for all of us to really know because what is happening today is something that can be traced back to the year of 2005, at least to 2005. Let's see what he's saying here.
To the foundational assumptions made. Um, Iran's not afraid of regime change. That's a Western perception. Iran doesn't fear regime change. And Iran's not running out of anything. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. In 2006, Dick Cheney and George W. Bush were planning an attack on Iran at that time. It was planned for the month of March. I think there was a holiday, the Nowruz festival, 10-day holiday. The Iranians shut it down and they closed everything. They were ready to fight. At that time, they broke Iran into 57 different self-sustaining military districts because they believed it was a ground invasion, that the U.S. would seek regime change. And so they built a design that was intended to have Iran survive regime change. Each one of these 57 military districts has been equipped and sustained for 2 years of fighting. 2 years. The Iranians can ride this thing out for 2 years. And if anybody doesn't believe that, just watch them. Israel is not doing any damage to Iran strategically, none whatsoever. You don't see any panic on the side of the Iranians. No panic at all because they have prepared for this. Israel hasn't prepared for what's happening to it. That's the difference. So I think it's wrong to assume that Iran is somehow in a panic state, worried about any. They're not worried about anything. They would like to get out of this and get on with their business. But if look at the lack of hesitation to strike American bases. If Iran was scared, they wouldn't be acting this decisively. They're willing to go the distance. How many other nations are willing to go to that same distance? And there's the danger, because what happens if the United States gets dragged into a conflict with Iran? First of all, if we operate under the misconception that the Iranians fear regime change and fear running out of assets, we could get involved in an air campaign of limited duration that doesn't succeed in its objectives. And at the end of the day now, we've exhausted our ability regionally to strike. Iran continues to hit our bases, pulling us back. And now we have to mobilize troops. I don't know what the war plan is today for Iran. I know what the war plan was back in 1985 because I helped write the intelligence annex to it. Hundreds of thousands of troops, forcible entry in the ports of Chabahar, Bandar Abbas, airport seizure, all that thing. Hundreds of thousands of troops that we don't have right now. So we'd have to mobilize, train, and then move them in and carry about forcible entry into Iran in contested areas, in contested space. This is a years-long endeavor. And
do you think
when this plan was briefed to Trump back after the global hawk was shot down, they told Trump at that time, there's no guarantee that we win this one, meaning that even if we do all this and send the forces in, we still may be beat because the Iranians have prepared for this. So the danger here is that the United States, operating off of misperceptions, overcommits. And the real risk here is, if you remember early on when people talked about Fordo and the fact that U.S. conventional weapons wouldn't be able to take it out, the White House released a piece of information with non-attribution, but it was linked to the White House, a White House source, that Trump is considering the use of a tactical nuclear weapon against Fordo. Do you remember seeing that piece of report? It was there from the White House. They didn't because they came in with 6 or 12. I forget how many. I think it was 12 massive ordnance they dropped out. But the thing is, what that shows is that when the United States runs out of conventional resources, we're not going to admit defeat. And then if we escalate, there's the potential of nuclear weapons being used. And that changes the game tremendously. So you're 100% correct. This conflict could spin out of control and take on proportions that are unimaginable at this moment. The collapse of the global economy, the introduction of nuclear war, which then could resonate throughout the region and around the world. So anybody who treats this as a game, sort of a video game, this is sort of cool, America's dropping bombs on Iran, oh, look, missiles in the sky. Guys, we're talking about potential end of the world kind of stuff here.
Okay, so let's see what Scott Ritter is saying here. He is mentioning about a potential strike on Iran during the time of Bush and Dick Cheney. and that year was in 2006. The vice president of Dick Cheney, and this is something that came on the Guardian newspaper. President Dick Cheney has long favored, this is what they're saying, the Guardian newspaper, he has long favored upping the threat of military action against Iran. He is being resisted by the Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice and the Defense Secretary Robert Gates. In 2005, not 2006, but 2005, Mr. Bush came down in favor of Miss Rice, means I'm not going to be attacking Iran. That's what he said. But listen to this. So this is what he said in favor of Miss Rice. Bush came down in favor of Miss Rice, who along with Britain, France and Germany has been putting a diplomatic squeeze on Iran. But at the meeting of the White House, Pentagon and State Department last month, that happened in the year again 2006 or 2005 actually, Mr. Cheney expressed, so Dick Cheney was frustrated. Dick Cheney wanted a war with Iran. Bush and Condoleezza Rice, they said, wait a second, we can go to the route of diplomacy. He was frustrated. He expressed frustration at the lack of progress, means we are not doing anything with Iran's nuclear program. And Mr. Bush sided with him. So Bush then changed his position. He was with Condoleezza Rice and then he changed his position and he said, okay, I will go with Dick Cheney. Quote, the balance has tilted. There is cause for concern, the source said at that time. Nick Burns, the Undersecretary of State responsible for Iran and a career diplomat who is one of the main advocates of negotiation, told the meeting it was likely that diplomatic maneuvering would still be continuing in January of 2006. That assessment went down badly for Mr. Cheney and Mr. Bush. The people who were on the side of negotiation with Iran at that time, they gave a forecast, if you like, to Bush and Cheney that, look, we can wait, we can still talk with Iran, and that can go on from 2005 to the year 2009. No problem with that. We can still contain Iran's nuclear program. But that did not sit well with the Bush or Cheney. Quote, Dick Cheney has limited capital left, but if he wanted to use all his capital on this one issue, he could still have an impact, said Patrick Cronin, the director of studies. The point here is this, guys. Bush wanted a war. Dick Cheney wanted a war with Iran. And so what we see today, Donald Trump wanting a war, all of this influence at the White House is coming from the same source, which is the military-industrial complex, but most importantly, it is the Zionist entity who wants a fight with Iran because for some reason they believe that this is how they will have dominance, complete and utter dominance in the Middle East. And this is what we see today, echoed from Netanyahu, where he said, I don't want Syria to be united. I don't want Lebanon to be united. I don't want any country to be united and adopt a single policy when it comes to the Zionist state of Israel, and that is to really get rid of the Zionist state of Israel is military. And so Netanyahu, he always wanted to push this narrative that somehow these countries, all of these countries, not just Saudi Arabia or UAE, even though he has good relationship with UAE right now, but at the end of the day, he is scared of all of these countries and he wants to get rid of all of them and make them important. And this is why he is after Iran's nuclear program. But guys, it is too late because Iran has found itself to be in a position where they have really no other choice but to fight back all of these plans and conspiracy and attacks. And we are seeing, rightly so, that Iran is defending its nuclear sites and not giving up the nuclear program whatsoever.